the purpose is always creating healthy environments for growth. And then I think more now we're all recognizing, the three of us, our role is now to share that with others. We had that freedom for a very long time, well, them longer than me. But now, like, if it's something good, why would you keep it to yourself? Why wouldn't you share that? Why wouldn't you say, hey, guess what? Some of the times I was the one that made the mistakes, and here's how I did them. And you're probably going to make the same mistakes, and that's okay, because that's what made us better. So I would say that probably helped us to align why it made sense to keep going. And I don't know that we'll ever sell. We might keep it running. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. I don't know, but we definitely want to keep the heart of saying, if we're going to serve customers, serve vendors, serve employees, serve the community, if we keep the partnership view that everyone matters, then this thing is worth preserving. So I think when you look at corporate America today, how often do businesses get away with saying, well, yeah, profit's the number one thing? Is it? Is profit really the number one thing? Or is it investing in your team, in your family, your communities, and in all the relationships?
Welcome to the How to Buy or Sell a Business Successfully podcast. The concepts discussed in this podcast are for informational purposes only. No attorney-client relationship is intended or formed by this podcast. No legal advice is intended in the substance of this podcast. Feel free to check out our website, www.goforemanlaw.com. Enjoy the show and welcome your hosts, Jake Wayman and Sam Foreman. Welcome back to another episode of How to Buy and Sell a Business Successfully. My name is Sam Foreman. I'm the founder of Foreman Law. I'm one of your hosts today and every day. And one of the best things going on in my life right now, once again, is my children. And I'm so proud of both of them. And I'm also especially proud of my wife. We have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old. They are exceptionally high energy and have a variety of unique and special needs. And my wife has been working really hard with them on creating this sort of shared identity as a brother team. And that's been really cool to kind of see it come together. And lately, we've also been working on helping them keep their rooms clean on a daily basis, which I deserve a medal for, honestly, if I'm being completely candid. The medal's not for humility, if you may have gathered, but
it's like Wreck-It Ralph, you need that medal.
What's that?
Like Wreck-It Ralph, you need that medal.
Yeah, I need that medal, yeah. But they've been doing a great job with it. It's taken a lot of work and consistency with them, but they're doing a really nice job of keeping their rooms clean in the mornings. They require a lot of follow-up, but they're getting there. And at 8 and 4 years old with lots of distractions and attention issues, I feel really proud of them. So, and with that, I'll pass it to my co-host, Jacob Wayman.
Thanks, Sam. My name's Jake Wayman. My wife and I are the proud owners of the Orange Theory Fitness franchises here in Wichita, and also work for a middle market investment bank called Infinity Capital Partners out of Oklahoma City, and also do a little work with my family's company, which we can talk a little bit about today with family companies and family dynamics, which is Citywide Facility Solutions. And they do commercial cleaning, outsourced facility management. And I wear a lot of hats, but I love every one of them and enjoy it. One of the best things in my life right now, again, going with the kid thing, I had a few that I was thinking about, but like movies, like I mentioned, like Wreck-It Ralph, like they always get on like these movies they want to watch every single day, all the time, because I have my 11-year-old bonus son, and then I have my 4-year-old and my 2-year-old, and the 4 and 2-year-old just love like to get on these things. And so they actually wanted to watch Sandlot. And so I was like pumped about that.
Oh, yeah.
And so we had family movie night watching Sandlot. And but again, in Sandlot, there's that one place where he goes, oh, and my 4-year-old decided to do that. So much like your previous comment, Sam, from our other episode, my 4-year-old is now
maybe there
on
was
that
like
too.
a full moon. It sounds like it was around the same time that my 4-year-old also discovered.
Oh, yeah.
That expansion of vocabulary.
Yeah, but they love that movie, and so it's a lot of fun. But yeah, it's love my kids. They're a joy, and I learn something from them every single day. So that's a lot of fun. Well, we're excited today to be joined by Lance Miller. Lance is the current president of Trinity Sales, and I won't steal his thunder. So I'm going to let Lance. I'm going to let you kick it off and share a little bit about yourself and what's the best thing going on in your life right now.
Yeah, so Trinity's been a journey. I know we'll dig into that a little bit more as we talk. Done that this will be the 22nd year, almost finishing it up, working with family. And those have always been a journey. Some things outside of work, real involved in our church. We attend Reliance Community Church out west on the west side and have been there for a number of years. I think about 13 years, serving at various capacities out there, music ministry, some leadership stuff there. And then also probably how I met you through Impact Wichita, some leadership coaching and development that we do here in town. So a couple of things that I enjoy getting to do, among other things, but I like your theme with Sandlot. It's kind of interesting. We had a really busy 2025, and then Sunday, begrudgingly, my wife agreed to do our annual plan. Usually I'm more excited about that than she is. But went through, the picture, right? Yeah. Went through the pictures of 2025 and the calendar things and everything else. And we had a crazy year. It was awesome. There's so many blessings. But also, I would say in the last month, we've done a lot more family time, which sometimes I'm a little bit too focused on goals and achievement, so I'm not the most present at what I could be. Our girls are 9 and 12 and just turned 12, and so we've done a lot of family movies. We just recently watched Pirates of the Caribbean, and when you talk about Sandlot, I also wonder, how dumb were we as kids that we didn't pick up on all the innuendos of all the movies that our parents let us watch? Mom and Dad, thank you, but maybe you shouldn't let me watch that stuff.
It is a stunning, going and rewatching movies as an adult with my kids, and I'm so grateful that they are as oblivious to some of that stuff. At least I think they are, as I was, because it's just there's a lot more of it out
and
there.
They wonder
than I
why
remember.
we're so messed up sometimes.
What? I don't feel like I'm messed up. I have a therapist for that. Lance, I want to talk about something you just mentioned real quickly. You mentioned like a family plan, and I know this wasn't on our prep questions or stuff, but that sounds very intentional. It sounds very directional. And can you tell our listeners that maybe don't have one of those, or what is that, and what kind of purpose does it serve for you and your family?
Yeah, sure. So we actually did it at our Bible study last night as well as a group, a little different focus of what we did, but a lot of them involve highlights and lowlights. What's something that you'd like to start this year? What's something you'd like to stop this year? I think in America, we're really caught up with doing all the things and the busyness cycle. I think that's cultural. It's not necessarily just achievers that are doing that. Right. So it can be really valuable to stop doing things. They may be good things, but there's other things that we can do that maybe are even better, more enriching for our family. We started doing it. I think we did it this is our third year doing it. We go a little bit more in depth and sound super nerdy because we do it for 4 hours. And then we also do a quarterly review, but it's just looking at, are we investing in the things that are giving us the most joy, the things that maybe God has given us gifting so that we can operate in that.
Right.
We did it with the girls Friday night.
That's cool.
They hated it.
Yeah,
but they
that
did
sounds
it.
to be expected, but what a neat thing. They'll remember that completely differently.
And we did let them grab our phones. So, right away, they're pretty high cool points and look through the pictures. Oh, yeah, we did that and we did that. So we only made them do it for a half an hour. And I think 25 minutes of that was looking at pictures and 5 minutes was, okay, now what should we do this year? And that's when we lost their interest. But we tried.
Yeah. Well, what a great way to kind of get them introduced to that. Would you consider yourself, pretty motivated, pretty driven, very goal oriented, very, achievement is something that you kind of latch on to and focus on?
For sure.
Okay. Do you feel like that creates a tension between, having the family, life and quality that you want and, the draw towards the tangible sort of instant feedback that business has?
Yeah, without question. I think that's part of the maturation process is to look at and say, okay, these things used to give me joy. And they even say, I read a fair amount of things, and I know you guys are readers as well. If you want to create a habit, if there's not any sort of stretch in there, you're going to get bored with that habit. Right. If it's too hard and you can't achieve it, you're also going to say, why try? It's not worth it. Right. So I think what I've been challenged to think about a lot in the last couple of years is picking the right things to pursue. And maybe it's not just the financial things. Maybe it's not the success things. Maybe it's what's it look like to just feel good in spending time with my family, some physical health, mental health, emotional health, all those things. And if we're shooting for the right goals, we have a pretty good chance that we'll actually hit them.
Right. Well, it sounds like you've identified that, hey, we can't just go do everything. We have to say no to a lot of things. And we have to be very intentional with what's at the top of our priority list as a family. I mean, does that feel accurate?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's true in family. I think that's true in business. I think that's true in leadership and person. Like, if we don't know what's important, then we'll hit it. Hit nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's really helpful. I appreciate you sharing on that. I mean, we talk to, a lot of very driven people who also have families that they care about a lot, but I think most of us don't think about, our families with the same level of intentionality and the same level of structure that we do with like our businesses. And I mean, it's very timely for me personally. We just did something very similar at our household, and my wife was giving me a hard time leading up to it because my history is like, here's the 37 things that we're going to do this year, and they're all new, and we're not taking anything else off the list. You could probably guess what my batting average is on that. It's not good. But this year we're taking a different approach. It's very, very limited. It's very purposeful. It's very much like, hey, if we get done with this, then we'll go to something else. But very encouraged, very excited about that in our family because there's, we're called, I think, to, be leaders for our families, to help our families, get better, do better, and not just to drift along. And just like you said, you don't aim at anything. I mean, you're going to get whatever you get. And that's exactly where you pointed is you pointed at nothing and you got nothing. And I think that's one of the differences, both like on a family level, but then also like a family business level, of bringing that intentionality of like, hey, where's all this going?
Yeah.
Like, what is all this for? And what are we doing with this? Tell us a little bit about your journey in your family business, if you would, and how long has, I think you mentioned 18 years. Is that right? 22?
This will be
47 years.
In May. Right. Yeah. One of those numbers.
82 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So just a little bit of context. Mom and Dad have been doing it together since 1983. And try to keep it as short as possible. Dad got fired the day that Mom was taking maternity leave because I was about to be born. So that kind of set a new thing in action, and that's when they started their first business, which was in the same business that we're in today, construction equipment rental. They ran that from 1983 until 1999, selling to a large national corporation, and that was a good process. Like they learned a lot from that, and then so I'm graduating Northwest High School in 2002, and going to Wichita State for business. And that company shuts down their Wichita branch. Didn't give anybody a warning. By then, Mom and Dad were gone. He'd got laid off following 9/11, and so they have this building. The entity didn't purchase their building. And I looked at him. I was working a part-time job. I think I was just cold calling people to see if they want to sell their business. And funny, I didn't think of that until just now.
Yeah, you were your own searcher right there.
Yeah, I was unsuccessful. Yeah. There was a nice carrot if I would have achieved anyone to say yes. I didn't mind. I'll call people. Yeah. But I looked at Dad one day and said, Dad, one of these days I'm going to need a real job. So about halfway through college, we started up Trinity together. So Dad and I were the first two employees. Pretty sure he didn't trust me because all he let me do was go back in the paint bay and sand and paint equipment for quite a while. And I learned later that he wasn't even fully committed because he was still soliciting job offers from other people. He only told me that like 2 years ago. I think by then he knew I was locked in. But been a pretty cool journey. I think one thing I want to say would be a lot of people assume that it's Dad, and he is the visionary. He has that gifting. He can see things that others don't see. But without Mom, like it's not 51-49%. It is 50-50. Mom had giftings that he needed, and the two of them working together has just been has been pretty cool to see. So I've worked with them for 22 years now, and we're working on that transition process of where we're going from here. But now we've got a team of 49 and started almost 22 years ago.
No, that's great. That's great. Were your parents always like that, to where they worked really well together, where they knew kind of how their complementary giftings fit together, or was it something that you observed, like, hey, they had some sort of process of like figuring it out that you were able to observe?
That's a good question. I think they probably have been that way for a long time. And even to go back to what got him into working for himself, they were at home. They're just praying like, well, God, what do you want us to do next? And like the phone rings on the wall, and it's just someone calling. We don't remember what the person wanted to buy. Well, I wasn't there. But someone asked Dad to find something. He's like, well, no, I don't work for them anymore. And they're like, we know, but you can find it, right? So here, Mom and Dad are together figuring out what's going to happen next, deep dependence on their faith, and an opportunity presents. So I think that it probably started before that, but that would be a milestone of when it was the two of them together. And I think it's just grown ever since then.
Not to be too cheesy, but they heard their calling.
Well, and I can relate so much to that because my wife and I got
Sometimes
married.
God literally uses a phone. Okay, I'm done. Go on.
Yeah. Well, and I can relate so much to that because my wife and I got married in August 19, and I got fired from my job 3 weeks later after getting married. And that's what prompted us to go through the process of buying Orange Theory. And I mean, it's I don't recommend anybody buying a business, within 6 months of getting married. There's a lot you can learn about each other in that process, as you know, well, you all know, being involved with your wife, and then also with your parents being business owners together. But I can relate. I mean, it's so much like when you feel like the rug's been pulled out underneath you, but if you have faith, I truly believe, that calling will come around. I mean, and you got to be able to know what to do with it. And I think if you and your spouse are in sync with each other and knowing what your goals are as a couple, you'll be able to know where you're going. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to say that correctly, but it's taken my wife and I a long time to get there, but we've always been in sync. It's taken us until, probably about a year ago that we're like, okay, we know what we're doing now. Like it took us to get there, but it's, it's cool to hear those stories that, you take a really crappy situation and it turns out to be something that is tough and hard, but it turns out to be something very cool in the end.
Right. I think there's so many parallels between leading a family and leading a business. And I think that, I talk to a lot of business owners that I don't think have the clarity or the sense of structure that you do between both of those, but that both of you have between both of those. And I think it's somehow we feel like those principles, those concepts of understand how an organism works, be intentional, be purposeful, set clear expectations, monitor, measure, be realistic, all that other stuff that often works well in business, be aligned with vision, that those somehow don't have any sort of integration into the family unit. And instead it's like family is where I go to just kind of completely turn off my brain and my gifting and my skills. And then I drift along, and then I wonder why my family seems to be floundering. It's like you put a CEO or you put a management team in any business, and they run it the way we run our families sometimes, and they wouldn't be surprised to get the parallel results that I think a lot of very values driven, very intentional, good people see in their families. It's like, hey, that'll just be there for later, and I think having that intentionality that you guys bring, I think is really powerful.
I was driving yesterday, and I was listening to Patrick Lencioni. He has At the Table, his podcast, and I think the title was The Impact of High Achievers. Highly recommend reading that or listening to that, because it talks a lot about that, because you may be a high achiever in like one facet of your life, like business, but not so much in your family life. And there's issues there and everything. And he talks about, it's like, I don't go into detail on it, but it's what we're all talking about is like, we're all high achievers, but what are you a high achiever in? That's the better question.
Right.
Yeah. You were saying something, it struck me. There's a quote from my brother-in-law, and he just said it in the moment. Like he didn't know that he was going to be quoted, but probably 10 years ago, he said, hey, Lance, did it ever occur to you that when you were growing up, you were also watching your parents grow up at the same time?
That's really deep.
So when I think of that, I also think of anybody that you listen to now is talking about baton passes. Well, sometimes your parents pass you the baton in family, and then sometimes you pass it back to them. It's not always like, oh, this is a permanent thing.
Right.
And I think there's parallels to that in business as well. Like there's a moment where I'm the student and I may become the teacher, but I might need to become the student and again, or maybe I'm both at the same time.
Right.
Because we talk a lot about mentorship. We talk a lot about accountability, peer mentorship, someone ahead of us, someone maybe that we're leading behind. We learn a lot by teaching other people. We also learn by asking questions. And so it's like one of those things, like what you're talking about, this journey, to me, I appreciate the compliment of intentionality. I'll say a lot of times we don't have a clue what we're doing,
Right.
but we walk in obedience, we walk in faith that whoever taught me, they did something and they experienced some tough lessons. And even if I don't understand it, I might just want to follow in their footsteps because it might go well for me.
Yeah.
And then you look at the achievers, they're like, hey, I'm going to hack this. I'm going to find a way to do it better than them. And it doesn't usually end up so well for that achiever.
Right.
No, I've always found myself reflecting. Because I grew up in a family business. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. My dad is an entrepreneur. You know, he's in business with my brother right now. I work with them too as well. But like, I look back on all the things that I just see my grandpa was your, you know, roll your sleeves up. I mean, he was the week before he passed away, he was up on the roof of one of his commercial properties fixing the HVAC unit. I mean, that's the man he was. But what he taught me was square and level. You know, and in construction, it's like everybody knows what square and level means. But like the way he'd always tell me, he'd say, is that square and level? And he taught me a lot of hard lessons there because there's a lot of things I built for him that were not square and level. And he would say, hey, there's the jackhammer, go fix that. And so, but like I look back on those things and just all the lessons that I learned. I mean, in the moment I hated it because I was working, you know, I'm here 12, 13 years old, you know, having to get up at 6 a.m. to go, you know, work with him when all my other friends are going to the pool or something like that. But I look back on that now and it's like, I love those lessons, you know, because he was my mentor, and same with my dad. He is my mentor. My dad is like, I love working with him, but your conversation about, you know, are you the teacher or the student? You become both. And now working with my dad and brother, I feel that because it's like, I'm learning from my dad and almost watching him, you know, cause he's had to rebuild himself 2 or 3 times from business failures and everything, and watching him go through that. And so it's been exciting to see that. And I wouldn't trade it. I mean, there's a lot of hairy things in that, in those relationships, but I wouldn't trade them.
Yeah, that's good.
There's a lot of humility that has to go along with that. I mean, you mentioned that there's a lot of achievers. And are you guys familiar with the Enneagram? Okay. I'm an Enneagram 3. Shocker, right? Like that's the achiever, right? Are you a 3?
Yeah. Okay. Definitely.
All right. So we're 3 for 3 on the 3s up here. And when that gets misplaced, I mean, you can steamroll people.
Yeah.
You can really get your priorities out of line through the things that you really, at the end of the day, care most about, and having enough perspective and enough grounding to bring that humility to knowing, hey, I can learn something from somebody else. And it might take a long time, or it might take, you know, whatever. But then also from a I think a perspective of humility, I may have something to teach somebody else. And I like that how you shared that, hey, sometimes you're the teacher, sometimes you're the student, and it goes back and forth. Because just from a perspective standpoint, I love that phrase that you mentioned of you're watching while you're growing up, you're also watching your parents grow up. Is thinking that if we're fortunate, we spend more of our lives as co-adults with our parents than we do as children with adult parents.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that's a different shift, especially in like family business relationships. So what was that like when things like from a family business perspective started to transition from, hey, I'm just back here working in the paint bay. Dad's out there. I don't know it yet, but he's looking for other jobs. Because he's not sure how I'm going to do at the paint bay thing, I guess. No,
Yeah.
But when did things start to transition to like, hey, we've got something here. You know, this is more than just a right now thing. This is a, you know, right direction thing for us as a family, and you know, from a business perspective, how did that start to shift?
Yeah, I would say probably like first grade, and we'll go back in time. I remember like growing up, I always knew that my parents were entrepreneurs, and I also thought that the reason that we had a nice house is because they didn't let my sister or me get pop at restaurants or candy at the grocery store.
It's powerful.
I'm
going to use that at my house.
Good luck.
Yeah, thanks.
But no, I think initially, like just looking at what they were doing, and I'd say, I mean, God's blessed us so much more in the current enterprise of what we're doing than what there was there. But that laid the foundation. So I got to see that growing up, and I got to see them taking risks. I wasn't aware that I was seeing them take risks, but I was seeing them take risks. And so you're being taught when you didn't even know you're being taught. And back to being a 3 achiever, I wasn't going to wait very long before I started telling Dad how to run the business. And he needed me to be patient to realize that I still didn't have everything figured out. So I would say it was just it's been a 20-year journey, and probably Mom deserves more therapy than Dad and I do, because she had to watch the two of us battle it out. And mom is wise. And so dad and I are over talkers. Shocking. Mom would hold and wait. And I've even seen her, like when we tell like the story of Trinity to other people, like Mom, jump in. And she always lets dad. And so, if I get the chance, I love to hear her perspective because, I've got a couple of good mentors that have really invested. I've been so thankful for the last 3-5 years. The term perspective implies that mine is not the only one. And how many type 3s think my perspective is the only one? And when I recognize that there's a whole bunch of other people doing this thing, and if I'll just listen, they'll actually help me.
Right.
So, I'd say it was a transition of time, and not to say that there hasn't been a little bit of pushing. Mom, Dad, like, is this still like what you really want to do? And I think just listening to some of the conversations you guys have had with other entrepreneurs that have done their thing, like, entrepreneurs find a lot of their identity in what they do. And that's a good thing. And it's also a really challenging thing to say, man, can I find my identity in something else? And can I give someone else the opportunity to show what they're capable of? So that's been a fun process, and they're doing a fantastic job. And I think more importantly now, what I feel my role is building into is becoming the steward in the biblical perspective of not what Greg and Pam visioned, but what God gave to them. And then how do I walk in obedience? Because it's really easy to put myself up there like I've got this whole thing figured out. And as soon as I do that, my perspective dominates others' perspectives. I'm not inclusive of what others might have. And I'm losing God's perspective of why did he give this to us? Was it for us to build a business, or was it to grow, to have a mentorship academy, to do some dumb stuff and have your family around to love you even when you're the idiot? Right. So there's so many more lessons, but those are only attainable when I listen more than I talk.
Jake and Sam here.
Thank you for joining us. If you find this content helpful, please like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and especially leave us a 5-star review on Spotify or iTunes. Really helps us out a lot.
Yeah, 1 star, it's on Sam.
Yeah, it's definitely on me. Yeah. No, that's good. That's powerful stuff.
I mean, that's where some people get blinded by pride, or is it humility? And they think sometimes, well, I am humble, but you actually be more prideful more than anything. And I think that's when something happens, and it's like, and that's what I've had it happen to me many times, to where I thought I had it all figured out, and then got at a different perspective on that, and hit me on the side of the head. I'm one who God has to hit me hard for me to listen, and I don't like that about myself, but it's made me appreciate a lot more things in that process. But again, like with my wife and I, like, we had to make a transition to where my skill set is better outside of Orange Theory, doing other things, and hers is very much within Orange Theory, and we had to make that transition because I was full-time in it. She was not. She was a school nurse, and we had to make the transition where she came in full-time, and I had to transition out. And it was very hard for me to be able to let go because of my identity, because it was like, oh, I'm the owner of Orange Theory. I'm the entrepreneur, and I had to switch that mindset and everything too. And it's taken a while to do that, but it's been powerful because my wife's a much better leader than I am of Orange Theory.
I'm going to tie a couple of things together here. I mean, we started this conversation talking about plans, which I think have a lot to do with purpose and direction. And then we're talking now about perspective. And it seems to me that you can't be successful with one without the other. Like your planning, your purpose will never exceed the degree to which you bring a really good perspective to it.
Yeah.
Because like even on this topic of like personal identity, which I mean, so many of us as entrepreneurs become enmeshed with it. Like our DNA is in our business, and our business is in our DNA, and we have a really hard time separating them and seeing it as a part of ourselves rather than it is who I am, right? And when we, I think, bring a really healthy sense of perspective to things, we can remember that, especially as Christ followers, that's not who I am, right? That's a gifting that I have. That's something that I bring, but that's not all that I am, right? So I just think that's interesting, the connection between those.
What I like about when you talk about Enneagram, the temptation of a 3 is to be a human doing. But what God calls you to is to be a human being. And sometimes, because He's given us our identity, the giftings that we have. And I truly believe if we're walking in our identity, it's something that God gifted us from. Now, was it nature or nurture? Well, maybe it was somewhat nurture because of the relationships we have. We go through some challenging situations. The shame is if we don't learn from the challenge, we get to repeat that challenge again.
Yeah.
But if I will stop and say, ooh, that was uncomfortable. What can I learn? Yeah. All of a sudden, I give myself the opportunity to become a different person tomorrow than I was yesterday. So like walking in that identity, I think is really important. And I think as leaders, one of the most important things we can do is try to help people have freedom to walk in their identity, especially people like there's times that people are trying to do, they're working so hard to fit an identity that doesn't even match who they are. And they're frustrated.
Right.
Because they're not walking in freedom. And so like I listen to that and I'm like, man, it's so hard as a 3, it sucks being a 3 some days, to say, wait a second, what does God want me to do right now? Because I read out these plans as if I've got it figured out, and it hasn't worked out so well so far very well when I follow my own plans. It's more when I submit them and say, all right, God, this is what I would like to do. What do you want me to do? Is any part of this in alignment with what you're speaking over me? And which parts would you like me to change, and how would you like me to do that? And then to wait days, weeks, months, years to have someone walk into my path to say, hey, have you considered this perspective?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Very cool. One of the questions I have for you from like a family business transition perspective is, families are complicated, right? Nobody fights like family fights. Nobody loves you like family loves you, at least, most of the time. How did you guys, were you ever in your family, especially as the transition started to happen, in a situation where it's like, hey, I don't know if we're going to get through this. Like, this is really hard. Or did it always feel like, hey, we're just inevitably we've prepared ourselves for this. Our relationships are really grounded. Our visions are really aligned. Everybody deals with difficult things, but it's just, we're going to get through whatever these sort of friction moments are.
Yeah. I think I'd be curious what mom and dad would say to that question.
That's so funny. We've got them on the line right now. They're listening to the whole time.
Time out. No, I would say there's definitely moments. And what would be interesting too is I would be so frustrated and just angry at a situation. And once I got some time perspective, I would recognize, oh, that was okay. And you really didn't need to have that much frustration, but at least a couple hundred times.
Yeah. What do you think it was about, your relationship with your parents, that, and how you all interacted in those moments that prepared you to successfully transition in spite of those, rather than allowing those moments to be something that pulled you apart and instead pulled you closer towards a shared vision of what was ahead?
There's probably some nuance in that.
We only ask black and white questions here. We'll move on.
I like that question. I think I was probably carrying some of the weight that I had to figure out how to do this instead of following them. I mean, just being a little bit headstrong for a good chunk of that time. But starting to see some of the lessons, go back to my dad's parents passed 3 years ago, and they were, I think they were 96 and 94. I can't remember exactly, but they were married for 67 years before passing.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I remember they passed about, I can't remember, 9 or 13 days apart. And Nano was very physically healthy. She was still going to the fitness classes where they lived, but she had pretty advanced dementia, Jan. And Granddad, his mind was super sharp, but he had a lot of physical challenges. And so she would sit in her bed. She didn't recognize him at this point, could not recognize his face, but she had a picture of the two of them together. And she used to say, Jan and John, Jan and John. And they passed so close together. And he went first, and she had a moment of lucidity the morning of his passing where she said, I got to see John. And so the nurses gowned her up because this was still COVID precautions in the facility. And to the best that we understand, she recognized him for the first time in a few years. And and then he passed a couple hours later. So super cool on that. Yeah. And dad is his son, and I'm dad's son. So like, there's a lot of identity pieces that I receive from granddad that I'm really thankful for. And then Nano passed. She ended up breaking her hip, and that was a blessing because we weren't able to have conversation much anymore. But I remember we just did we did a bigger ceremony, and then we did a family ceremony just to honor Nano. And I remember waking up that morning at like 3 or 4, and I couldn't sleep. And I just wrote out a bunch of notes of the memories that I had. And I'd been giving mom and dad credit for most of those memories up until that moment. And then when you have that thing happen, you're like, oh, that came from a generation above. Mm-hmm. And so I was just overwhelmed with gratitude of what that was. So to get into the nuance, I don't think I can answer that question. I think it was, dad was blessed to have 2 parents that loved each other for 67 years. Mm-hmm. Mom lost her father. I don't remember exactly how long a while ago. So one living grandma. And so there's those family legacies there. And then I just get to walk in that. Like I think really at the end of the day, I learned some lessons that I don't know that I learned. It just comes naturally because others modeled it.
Yeah, man. Well, and that kind of plays into the question that I have is like, how do you honor their legacy? And more, I'm talking about your mom and dad is honor their legacy, but now try to apply your own vision. Mm-hmm. Because you have a vision of growth. You're a growth-minded person, but you also want to honor the legacy that they've built. But you also know that Trinity's a great company, and you have great customers, and you have a lot of opportunity ahead of you. Mm-hmm. So how does that play? Because your dad's still involved, your dad and mom are still involved, still active in it. So what does that look like as you're kind of planning that as you look out the next 5 years from now?
I think if we go back to half an hour ago, or roughly, we were talking about, I don't know when it was, being a teacher and a student at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I think this is like, I'm 42 now. Mom and dad are both 69. And some of the things that I'm encouraging them to consider right now, I'm planning to do in 13 years. I don't know if it's going to happen then, but I want to be in a place where I'm letting go and allowing others the opportunity. Leadership is really one good way to measure leadership is your ability to empower and make others great. Mm-hmm. So you trade in, that's a Maxwell quote, I'm not getting it right. You trade in your own greatness for the opportunity to see someone else do it. So I think in this moment, I'm taking a leap of faith and saying, hey, we got some great people on our team. How do I and mom and dad step back and say, what's your vision? Mm-hmm. Give them the higher vision and let them figure out how they fit in there. Mm-hmm. And then give them the opportunity to fail. Mm-hmm. And then when they do fail, let them self-assess and say, hey, what went well? What didn't go so well? And how can I help? Don't put the pressure on them that they've got to meet perfection, because so much of the time we're aiming for this perfection, and that's never a good thing. Perfection's never healthy. Excellence is great. Perfection, not so good. That mentality added to last year, we started having family meetings, and we do them at mom and dad's house. Holly comes with me, my wife. Sometimes we talk about work stuff, and sometimes we talk about family stuff. But what that allows us to do is to rebuild that family culture between just the 4 of us. And sometimes our kids come in, and my sister's family, and mom and dad have been super intentional about creating environments for the family. To some degree, mom and dad are drivers and achievers. They're not, I don't think they're a 3 on Enneagram, but they're hard workers. I don't know if I've ever met anybody that works harder than mom and dad both together. But sometimes we prioritize growth inside the business over health of the family. So that's allowed us to pivot and say, hey, we're okay doing that, and we're going to set time aside just to grow as a family. So just spending time together, it seems kind of silly that it took me 42 years to figure out that we needed to spend time together if we wanted to have a relationship. And it couldn't just be in the business. Like, yeah, sure, you see your mom and dad down the hall at the office, but that's not the same as saying, let's go grab dinner, let's go grab lunch, go hit some balls at the driving range, whatever that looks like. So I think we've all had to say, back to being intentional, if we don't invest in this, we won't have anything worth preserving. Right. And we prioritized, to a detriment, the business for a while, and we've said, hey, we really want to make sure that the family grows for whatever time we have left together, which they're really healthy. So that's not a warning, but it's really exciting that we get to do that together.
Well, that's so good to have that clarity and that shared clarity of direction of, hey, this is what's most important to us. And I really like that you've highlighted here the importance of the family relationship outside of the family business context.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a lot of people that we see, I mean, it is all about the business.
Yeah.
Like it has consumed, it has eaten up their relationship, and there isn't really a lot of room outside of that for anything else. And, tack on to, what you shared about that multi-generational cultural transition, right? The things that get passed down through, the legacy of your lineage is, you're adding, you and your parents are adding this cool new aspect of that, of this really great intentionality that, I think is really powerful. I think that your family will benefit from for a long time. And I think that's a great thing. I mean, that's not something that especially people in family business, I think, see modeled very often, that sort of intentionality outside of this. And I think it's because we're busy. Life's busy. Like, hi, I'm Captain Obvious. This PSA is brought to you. like life is busy, and life in family business is even busier, and it's even more complicated, and there's even less space for intentionality and all this other stuff. And so being able to get to a place where you all are able to work towards that. I mean, hats off to you all.
Yeah, appreciate it.
That's cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. We're kind of getting a little bit towards the end of our episode here. We've got one more question, then we'll kind of bring it in for a landing here. But was there ever like a moment in this process as kind of this generational transition occurred where you all are like, I just don't know that this makes sense. Like, why are we even doing this? Let's just, why should we even keep doing this as a family? And maybe we should just be done with it and hand it off to somebody else.
No, I would say probably the opposite. There was a good moment where we kind of all sat together and said, we're doing the right thing. I don't remember if it was last year or I think it was in 24. We had two approaches from businesses that were interested in purchasing the business. And we've kind of outgrown our space at the office. If you drive by, you have to park on West Street because there's no parking inside the parking lot. And so we had this meeting in Dad's truck, and it wasn't planned. It was just spontaneous, but I just kind of came to them and said, hey guys, we got these two offers. I'm not super interested, but I just feel like you should know that I mean, they weren't tabled offers, but they were people wanted to continue the conversation. And I started the conversation with Dad, and then Mom hopped in the truck a little bit after that. And we kind of just had this moment of like, is there anything about this is appealing? And we kind of started talking numbers of what would it be worth? And Dad threw a number out, and I said, Dad, if it was 5 times that, I wouldn't be interested. Like, it's not about building a bunch of cash for us to go and sell. It's about creating an enterprise, a business that's worthy of protecting and giving others the opportunity to do what you guys have got to do for the last 40 years. So I would say, I think they've been pretty true. And that was a defining moment. I've heard Dad tell that story to a few people since. The purpose is always creating healthy environments for growth. And then I think more now we're all recognizing, the three of us, our role is now to share that with others. We had that freedom for a very long time, well, them longer than me. But now, like, if it's something good, why would you keep it to yourself? Why wouldn't you share that? Why wouldn't you say, hey, guess what? Some of the times I was the one that made the mistakes, and here's how I did them. And you're probably going to make the same mistakes, and that's okay, because that's what made us better. So I would say that probably helped us to align why it made sense to keep going. And I don't know that we'll ever sell. We might keep it running. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. I don't know, but we definitely want to keep the heart of saying, if we're going to serve customers, serve vendors, serve employees, serve the community, if we keep the partnership view that everyone matters, then this thing is worth preserving. So I think when you look at corporate America today, how often do businesses get away with saying, well, yeah, profit's the number one thing? Is it? Is profit really the number one thing? Or is it investing in your team, in your family, your communities, and in all the relationships?
Well, it's funny. It's like the guys we had on prior to this, private equity firm that, a little slightly different than most private equity. But I mean, one thing they talked about the most was culture. When they're looking at an organization to acquire, they're looking at the culture. They're looking at the people. They're looking at how is that the president or founder or what have you of that organization, how do they treat their employees? How do their employees act around them? Those sort of things. I mean, they may have strong financials and profit may be great, But if they have a horrible culture, I mean, that shows up in a lot of different ways too. So, I mean, it matters on a lot of different levels. And I think it's, that's, thinking in that regard is like, okay, what legacy are we building that goes beyond us?
Right.
Yeah.
We talk on this podcast a fair amount about this idea of like a personal scorecard. But I think in this instance, like it's a family scorecard, it's a company scorecard. It's just like you said, that sense of alignment. And I think that when families, especially family businesses, have fights or friction, a lot of times it's not just like the personalities, it's the alignment, right? There's no shared vision of, hey, here's what we're doing and why it's important. Or it's like some people, it's like, hey, I just want dollars. Other people, it's like, I want control, I want power. Other people, it's like, I want impact, I want legacy. And when you have, 4 different directions, 4 different people, I mean, you get the massive pull that creates the tension that I think sometimes, unfortunately, destroys families. But when you have that shared vision, that shared alignment of, hey, this is what's most important. I mean, there's just so much power in that. I mean, because that'll see you through a lot of bumps. And going back to perspective, when you know where you're going, I mean, like, you know what to do with a lot more clarity along the way than if it's like, well, I'm going over here and that person's going over there. And you also know where the other people are coming from too. So you can speak from a position of care and empathy about what matters most to them, not just what matters most to you. But to all of our listeners that are in family businesses, man, I mean, this one is hitting home for me in a big way. But just really encourage you, take time to really find that sense of alignment, find that sense of perspective. There's so much power in that. Lance, thank you so much for joining us today. One question we'd like to close out with is what's a piece of advice, and you're not limited to one. You can you can share more if you want, but what's a piece of advice or encouragement that you would give to folks that have family businesses out there that are listening, that would help them think about having a really successful, healthy family transition?
Yeah, I like that. I think definitely you need some input from some people outside of the business, and you need to make sure, I think, that they're loyal to helping, that you have alignment on what you're wanting input on. Because there's going to be days that you're going to disagree with a family member for one reason or another. And sometimes it is the family member's fault, and sometimes it's your fault. And if you don't have people that will speak truth to you with kindness, it's going to be really hard to navigate that, because then you're going to double down. And that's not going to end well. So having trusted people that actually like are loyal and love you to help you with the aligned goals that you have, I would say would be one of the most valuable things that you could have. There's probably 20 others, but I think that one's pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. I mean, just to echo that, when you get wisdom from people that have experience and that have perspective and don't have the personal emotions involved in things, I mean, you can accelerate your growth process as a family and as an individual in just really, really powerful ways.
Yeah.
So, Dan, that's great. Lance, thank you so much for joining us. To all of our listeners, thanks for checking out this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, because we know that when great deals happen, communities thrive. Thank you for the work that you're doing to grow your business, to lead your team, to lead your family, especially in leading your families. That's the most important work you'll ever do in your life. So keep it up. What you're doing matters, and it's making a big difference. Have a great deal. Thank you for joining us today. For future episodes, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And please check out our website at www.goforemanlaw.com/learning.